Einmal in der Woche Bibel.
Ah, okay. So every week something.
Einmal im Monat Fokus zum Bruder.
Zum,
Auf Deutsch.
Das weiß ich noch nicht. Meine Stimmung ist eher Englisch. Heute hier, oder?
Afrikaans?
Afrikaans, ne? Ah, einfach mal. Ich bin schon zu nervös. Ah. Nee, echt? Bin ich gar nicht. I don't know. I guess English. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Chanavalabha Girivaradari Gopi Chanavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vrachachana Ranchana Yashodanandana Vrachachana Ranchana Yamunati Ravanachari Yamunati Ravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Shri Radhe. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Kandaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Ja, Harmonium ist okay. Okay, Deutsch oder Englisch? How many speaking only English? Who speaks English only? So everyone speaks German. Jeder spricht Deutsch. Ah, ne, ich hab schon, danke. Keine Ahnung. So, you're going, no? So. I don't know.
Who does understand German? Two. Wer spricht Englisch?
Und der Kleine spricht kein Englisch. Vlado, you speak English, huh? Was beim Brane haben wir letztes Mal auf Englisch. Also mir ist es egal, ehrlich gesagt. Okay. Okay, musst du Englisch lernen? Gita, Englisch? German?
Also deutsche Übersetzung
Okay. Let us offer respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Vasudeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today's class will be a duet with my daughter and me. Which has also something to say. Let's see. Okay, reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, The Glories of Devotional Service. Jai. Text 13. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pumsam Matoni Shreyasayame Adyanto Paratir Yatra Tukasya Cha Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pumsam Matoni Shreyasayame Adyanto Paratir Yatra Tukasya Cha Sukasya Cha Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pumsam Matoni Shreyasayame Adyanto Paratir Yatra Tukasya Cha Sukasya Cha. Please chant.
Sri Bhagavan Vacha Yogadhyatmika Pumsam Atyanto Paratir Yatra Dukasya Cha Sukasya Cha
Bhagavan Uvacha Yogadhyatmika Pumsam Matoni Shreyasayame Adyanto Paratir Yatra Tukasya Cha Sukasya Cha. Pumsam Yasayame Adyanto Paratir Yatra Tukasya Cha Sukasya Cha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yoga Atmatika Pumsam Matoni Shreyasayame Adyanto Paratir Yatra Tukasya Cha Sukasya Cha. Matachis, please. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogadhyatmika Pumsam Matoni Shreyasayame Tukasya Cha Sukasya Cha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogatmika Pumsam Shri Bhagavan Uvacha The personality of Godhead said, Yogaha, the yoga system, Adhyatmikaha, relating to the soul, Pumsam, of living entities, Mataha, is approved, Ni Shreyasaya, for the ultimate benefit, Me, by me, Atyanta, complete, Upaditihi, detachment, Yatra, where, Dukasya, from distress, Cha, and, Sukhasya, from happiness, Cha, and. The personality of Godhead answered, the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In the material world, everyone is trying to get some material happiness. But as soon as we get some material happiness, there is also material distress. In the material world, one cannot have unadulterated happiness. Any kind of happiness one has is contaminated by distress also. For example, if we want to drink milk, then we have to bother to maintain a cow and keep her fit to supply milk. Drinking milk is very nice. It is also pleasure, but for the sake of drinking milk, one has to accept so much trouble. The yoga system, as here stated by the Lord, is meant to end all material happiness and material distress. The best yoga, as taught in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, is Bhakti Yoga. It is also mentioned in the Gita that one should try to be tolerant and not be disturbed by material happiness or distress. Of course, one may say that he is not disturbed by material happiness, but he does not know that just after one enjoys so-called material happiness, material distress will follow. This is the law of the material world. Lord Kapila states that the yoga system is the science of the spirit. One practices yoga in order to attain perfection of the spirit. One practices yoga in order to attain perfection on the spiritual platform. There is no question of material happiness or distress. It is transcendental. Lord Kapila will eventually explain how it is transcendental, but the preliminary introduction is given here. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananchana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmiritam Yena Tasmai Shiguruve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Bhangum Ranga Degirim Yat Kripadam Aham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svabadantikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Chagat Bade Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The personality of God had answered, the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. Dukhasya cha, sukhasya cha. Distress and happiness. Usually when we experience happiness in this material world, it's more or less removal of pain. If you feel cold, what we are doing, we're dressing warm, put on the heating. If you feel hungry, you eat. If you feel thirsty, you drink, and so on. Usually when we enjoy something, it's more like a kind of absence of this distress, absence of pain. So we always try to go from one duality to the next duality. Like a deer, it's described in the Bhagavatam. A deer is in the desert, first the deer is in the forest. Somewhere there is some pond, and a lake, and this lake is covered by grass, and the deer can't see the water inside, but the deer is looking for water. But because of bewilderment, illusion, the deer can't see the water inside this lake because of the grass. So the deer runs to the desert and thinks it can find the water in the desert. But it's even a bigger illusion. And this lake is described as the pleasure within. So the deer actually should go to underneath the grass, underneath the material covering, and find the water inside. In the same way, we try to enjoy our material senses in the outside instead of all the pleasure we find inside. And it's so easily to experience happiness within. All we're going to do here is practicing Krishna consciousness. It's pleasure within. It's not something from outside. Like the Maha Mantra, for example, like Sanatana Goswami once got approached by one fellow, I think it was even Brahmana, and he wanted to have the, Stein der Weisen, the touchstone. And the touchstone is what is the stone that can make everything to gold, or I can fulfill every desires? No, gold, yeah. And this touchstone he can make, when he touches something, it will become gold. Or how does it work? Or if you come in contact with iron, I don't know. And it was very valuable, this stone. And he asked Sanatana Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami said, yeah, just take it. It's here in the corner. At the garbage, you just take it. And then this man, he took the stone, and he was very happy to get it for free. And then he left. And then he thought, wait a moment. He gave me his most valuable possession. And it was just lying around here on the corner in the garbage. And he just said, take it. So maybe it was not his most valuable possession, because otherwise, why give it for free? Why is it just lying there? So he came to the conclusion, Sanatana Goswami here is something more, something else. Then he went to him, and then Sanatana Goswami said to him, I can give you the greatest jewel, the greatest gift. But first you have to throw away this stone, I think in the Yamuna. And yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? You have a touchstone, and you're rich, you can enjoy as much as you want, because you're not lacking any material things, because you have gold. And then some saint tells you, just throw it away and surrender, and I will give you something better. Would we really do it? I don't know. It's very tempting. You can think, oh, Yukta Varagya, I can take this stone, and then later I just say, okay, take it, and then I still figure out maybe what the saint has, or I find some other spiritual path and find perfection. But in the moment we surrender, we give up this material enjoyment and be open to receive the gift of Krishna consciousness, like this man got from Sanatana Goswami, then we find real pleasure. Happiness is just an illusion. Distress is also an illusion. But Ananda, spiritual happiness, this is the real thing. And in the material world, we're very limited. Like, how much can we enjoy in this material world? And in some of the Upanishads, it's described that the greatest enjoyment on planet Earth would be Yudhishthira Maharaj if he would not have fought against the Kuru dynasty, if he would have not had this great distress of losing his kingdom, his whole family lineage is destroyed, he had to fight against his own uncles, brothers, grandfathers, teachers, and kill all of them. And then after he could enjoy the kingdom, yes. But he never enjoyed the kingdom. He was always very regretful and couldn't understand and was remorse and it was painful for him that so many people had to die just for him to be king. But if this whole battle of Kurukshetra would not have been happened, Yudhishthira Maharaj would have experienced the greatest joy on planet Earth. He would have ruled the whole kingdom, whole Bharatvarsha. And the next highest form of happiness is the happiness of King Indra. Of course, first of the demigods in the material heavenly planets, they experience greater joy than us. And then comes, of course, the king of the demigods, King Indra. He experienced even higher happiness. He can enjoy Amrit, nectar, and Apsaras, beautiful damsels, without getting reactions, and so on. And then we have the Gandhavas on Gandhava Loka. Then I think it was Mahaloka, the rishis and the saints on higher planets who are more absorbed in transcendence already. And then the highest pleasure in the material world is the pleasure of Lord Brahma. He can enjoy the most in this material world. And then even higher is, of course, Brahman realization, that you emerge with the Supreme, with the rays of Vishnu. And then, what comes next? In the material world, that's it. You can't go higher. You have Dharma, Artha, Karma, Moksha. So Moksha, liberation, is the highest what you can attain in this material world. But then Bhakti is even higher than Mukti. Bhakti is higher than liberation. And the highest pleasure we can experience, it's called Premananda first. The pleasure of Prema, Krishna Prema. But even higher is the pleasure of the gopis, who dancing in the rasa dance and always think about the pleasure of Lord Krishna. And this is called Sevananda. This would be the highest attainment of pleasure. But we are very far, far away of this. And Kapila Dev, he describes in this chapter and in the next following chapter, Sankhya philosophy, Sankhya yoga. There's many kinds of yogas. What yogas do you know? Hatha yoga. Huh? Dog yoga. Yeah. Sankhya yoga, Dhyana yoga. Yeah. We have even Prabhupada said in this Beyond Birth and Death, the new book is in German, Jenseits von Geburt und yeah. Beyond Birth and Death, I read recently, he describes chanting the Maha Mantra, it's called mantra yoga. And if somebody asks us, we should say we do mantra yoga. And on Harinam, people sometimes ask, hey, what are you doing here? And sometimes we say we're chanting the glories of God and stuff. And for some, it's maybe too much. But you can say, we're doing mantra yoga. So it's also formed, or Tantra yoga, dissolution yoga, karma yoga, activity, jnana yoga, yoga in knowledge, dhyana yoga, yoga in meditation, sankhya yoga, to analytical study of reality, of spirit and matter. Yeah, Raja yoga, the royal yoga, the king of yoga. And there's so many different yogas. And is it only that bhakti yoga can lead us to the supreme? What do you think? It's the shortcut. Easier. Yeah. I don't feel it's so easy sometimes. It's like, here's a nice tattoo. What is your tattoo saying again? Yeah, that's Krishna consciousness. Complicated but simple. Yeah, it comes from Prabhupada, no? I can't remember. I heard this many times. So it's very easy, indeed. But also complicated in the same time. We struggle a lot in spiritual life. When you come here in the beginning, I remember I was running around here and was chanting Kirtan the whole day. We had earphones inside, Satchidananda Swami, Kadambakanda Swami, Madhava. And I was thinking, nobody's chanting here. I felt like I'm a pure devotee already. And I was in bliss, and it was like so much motive passion. And of course, you're new and you're enthusiastic. And then later I went on book distribution, and then Ananda told me, when you go on book distribution, you will face all the 6 enemies: lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, madness. And I was thinking, yeah, I'm not envious, no. Pride, no, I'm not proud, no. Illusion, maybe a little bit illusion is there, yeah, of course. Madness, no. Greed, no. And I thought, okay, maybe illusion is there. But anything else, I already passed. I don't know what he's talking about. But then I went on book distribution, and boom, Krishna took the mirror face in front of you, and you really face yourself. You really see the demon inside, all the anarthas, all the desires and attachments. But then you get purified, and then Krishna consciousness becomes real. But because we came here not for that somebody tells you how good you are, how beautiful you look, how nice you sing, how good you dance, how nice you cook, how good you can give classes or recite shlokas, or you come to all the programs, you're so advanced. And they said you don't see advancement actually by maybe somebody is in kirtan and he cries in ecstasy and his hair standing on end and he says, oh Krishna, and he rolls on the ground and he chants Hare Krishna, or whatever way he chants. And the devotees think, wow, he's so advanced. He's crying for Krishna the whole day. But could be so. Prabhupada said this is not a sign of advancement. Sign of advancement means detachment from material desires. You can see someone advancing in spiritual life if he's not attached to the material world. If he's not entangled anymore in this material entanglement. And this is the path of Sankhya Yoga, detachment. And in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse 5, I just read recently, Krishna says that Bhakti Yoga and Sankhya Yoga is on the same platform. It's not different. So what is Sankhya Yoga? Analytical study of the material world. That you understand, to analyze all the material elements, and then you come to the conclusion, what is left is the spirit, that you are spirit soul. This is the conclusion of Sankhya Yoga. And with this knowledge, you can detach from material enjoyment. And on the other hand, Bhakti Yoga means attachment. Sankhya Yoga is detachment, and Bhakti Yoga means attachment. Attachment to what? But I say to whom? Attachment to Krishna. And Prabhupada says, a wise person, Krishna conscious person, he doesn't see any difference in these two paths. No, it does. Huh? Okay. Was too loud? Not too loud? I feel like I'm very loud even without microphone. And yoga comes from the root yuj, what means union or to connect. So all these different paths of yoga means to connect the individual soul with the supreme universal being. And so Bhakti Yoga is not the only way how you can get liberation or attain the supreme. There's so many different ways. Like for example, we have Karma Yoga. It's more activity. But we can attain perfection by performing Karma Yoga. Maybe you don't go to Goloka Vrindavan, but you can go very far. Because yoga ultimately means connection to the Lord. Everything else is not yoga. Yoga means always the soul, union, connect with Krishna, with Vishnu. So if Karma Yoga further advances in knowledge, it will become Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga, Prabhupada says, mental speculation, or yoga in knowledge. And if this is more advanced, you meditate. You meditate about the super soul. And then later, it becomes Raja Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. And Ashtanga Yoga is a little bit more advanced. Because Ashtanga Yoga, Ishvara Pranidhan, that's already described, you should bring your awareness on a deity, on a form. And I was looking long time now to find Prabhupada speaking about Ashtanga Yoga. And finally I found something in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, I didn't research the whole Veda base here and there, but because somehow I always get the verses in recently about yoga and pranayama. I choose the day when I give class today, but I didn't saw the verse only 2 days ago. And then Ramananda asked me to change with him today. And I said, no, I like the verse, I like to speak about it. Was a little bit attached to speak about yoga because it's a great topic for me in my life. To understand the Krishna consciousness is also yoga. And we have so many different paths what can help us to support our bhakti yoga. Sorry, I lost. Ashtanga yoga. Thank you. Yes, and Ashtanga yoga, it's more personal already. And Prabhupada says that the highest form before bhakti yoga is Ashtanga yoga. Because this form of yoga, you focus on the super soul and on ultimately on the supreme being. He says on him. And then after Ashtanga yoga, you have all these paths. And Krishna explains it actually very in detail to Arjuna in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He explains so many forms how to control the mind. The mind is the worst enemy, the best friend. A yogi doesn't eat too much, doesn't sleep too much, doesn't eat too little, doesn't sleep too little, is balanced, is equipoised. How he should sit on a kusha grass, on a deer skin, his spine, neck, head erect, straight. Find himself in a comfortable yoga posture like he's doing now. You have to get reminded sometimes. And I always, when Prabhupada, there's a tape of Prabhupada where he's chanting and he always says, sit properly. I always thought he says, chant properly. But somebody told me, no, it's actually he said, sit properly. I think 2 times he says. And every time before I chanted, always with this tape, and then I hear sit properly. We need some devotee who sits in the temple in the morning, sit properly. And I can feel when I sit properly, immediately I can chant, I don't fall asleep. As soon as I sit like this, I fall asleep and my mind gets disturbed because the energy can't move, energy can't flow and you get tired and it's not good. You should sit properly. It's what japa meditation means not running around in the temple like I do sometimes because I'm tired. But it actually means prepare the day before. And then we have this great system from Patanjali, the yoga system, what starts with yama, niyama, the do's and the don'ts. Then we have asana, physical practice. But it's not, nowadays we have vinyasa and all this kind of yoga flows and this is not real yoga. Real yoga means asana, to hold a sitting posture for many minutes or even 2-3 hours. Somebody told me once, I don't know if it's true, but if you hold an asana for 3 hours, then you attain the perfection of yoga, of the asana. So if you can sit like this for 3 hours, without moving, we can attain perfection in this asana. And nobody can sit for 3 hours like this. Difficult. So don't move. Not even a muscle, not to scratch, nothing. And then after we have the practice of pranayama. Pranayama to control the life force, the life within. Increases the quality of life, but also increases the lifespan. And practice of pranayama, the goal is to lead to pratyahara, to withdraw the senses from the object of the senses, to go within. And if you practice yoga and pranayama, you can experience, then you can more go inside and be not so attracted to all this material things around you. I experience always when I have a nice pranayama session, then somehow I'm not so attached to eat. Of course I eat, but I remember a time when I did lots of pranayama, 1-2 hours and all these intense techniques, and then afterwards I had a big feast. Or watched some movie or whatever, and was not real pranayama, because pranayama should not create more mode of passion. It should actually bring you more in the mode of goodness and go more within, and that you actually don't need to eat so much, you don't need to enjoy so much the material senses. And then from this platform you can go on dharana, on concentration on one object, dhyana, meditation, samadhi. Prabhupada says samadhi means remembering the lotus feet of the Lord. And Prabhupada explains a lot in his purpose, and Krishna explains a lot in the shlokas about the process of dhyana yoga, meditation. And then Arjuna, he said, whoa, wait a little bit. Krishna, this is a little bit too much. Like, what you explained to me, I don't think I can do this. He says, it's very difficult to control the mind. And how he says, to control the mind is like harder to control the wind. And how you want to capture the wind. It's not possible. With pranayama, you can learn to control the air. But very difficult, very long process, very dedicated, very austere. For us, not really practical. Dhruva Maharaj, he took a breath for every 12 days. He was standing on one leg and was chanting the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And he was every 12 days, every few weeks he did something else. First he just eat some berries, and then later on he just lived from air. And then he took a breath for every 12 days. So this is perfection of pranayama. Or Hiranyakashipu, he was for thousands of years, or 1,000 years he was meditating, and in the end what was remaining was only his life air. And he couldn't control his life air. He was not dying. And there's a picture here, painting. You see Hiranyakashipu only in the skeleton, only his bones, and ants were eating his flesh already. And he was controlling his life force. This is pranayama. So what we are doing is a little bit breathing, but it helps to go a little bit deeper. And Dhruva Maharaj, at one point even, he had darshan of the Lord in his heart. He perfected meditation samadhi. He perfected his devotional activity. And Vishnu appeared in front of him. And then he touched him with his conch shell. Ding. Because Dhruva Maharaj was speechless. He didn't know what to say. And then Vishnu touched his forehead. And then he could recite wonderful prayers to the Lord. And we should learn some prayers. When one day Krishna will appear in front of us. And then we will be or we will say Chintamani and so on. Or we chant something nice to glorify him. It says first you glorify the Lord, then he will give you a boon, blessings. Then you can ask him for something. But first you have to glorify him. Yes, and Arjuna said to control the wind, the mind is even more difficult to control the wind. So he told Krishna, I can't follow this process. It's very difficult. And Dhruva Maharaj was a different yuga. Arjuna was already on the edge of end of Dvapara Yuga, beginning of Kali Yuga. And for us, for Arjuna was so difficult, what to speak of us. And then Arjuna asked Krishna, what can I do? How can I follow your instructions? How can I overcome? How can I control my mind? And Krishna's answer was Haribol. Krishna says, Haribol, Nitya Gaura Premanande. No, he said by suitable practice and by detachment. So we can do everything, it's possible, with practice and with detachment. It's very difficult to be detached. If you want to learn something and there's no results, and you keep on trying, keep on going, doing everything you can, but you're not moving forward, you become detached. Or a good example is book distribution. You want to do 50 books, for example, and you try hard for a month, and you do 10, 20, sometimes one, sometimes nothing, and you're trying really hard, and you do everything you can, you pray, you wake up at 3 o'clock, you even chant 32 rounds, you read 2 hours of Srimad Bhagavatam, you pray the whole time, you're very humble, everything is perfect, but it doesn't work. And at one point, or maybe you're already attached, because you want to have a result. To attain the result is not the number. To attain the result is actually to please Krishna. So to try is the perfection, but with detachment. When we have a goal, like we want to make Simhachalam glorious around the world, around the globe. So our goal is to spread the beauty of Lord Nishingadev around Europe, around the world. Everyone should know Lord Nishingadev. And it's a really big plan to really show the world Lord Nishingadev. In Jandelsbrunn in the Bavaria forest, one day it will be a holy pilgrimage, and everyone will come here to see Lord Nishingadev. It's a very high goal, and we should have the highest goal for Krishna. And we act like everything depends on us. We will try everything to fulfill this mission. But in the same way we are detached, we have to always understand the ultimate result is on Krishna. If he wants himself to be famous around the world, then he will be. Maybe he just wants to stay hidden in Bavaria forest, only for some special souls who can come here. That's up to Krishna. But we try. We do our best. On the book distribution, we try. We surrender. And if we do one book only, I always gave advice to devotees when they were new, when I was Sankirtan leader. I always told them, you just continue and every day will be successful. In the end, you will always have a very great experience. You will meet this one person who takes a book, who cries out of happiness, whatever. But at one point, Krishna will be happy and you will feel it. And there was this one devotee, Panchaveda, and he distributed from the beginning 50, 60, 70, 100 books very easily. And then I asked him one day, I had a very tough day, and I couldn't understand, how can he do so many books? We were in the same city in Linz, I did my 10 books, and then I asked him, and how is it going? Yeah, I have to load a new vehicle now, and the vehicle were like 50 books inside already. I was like, after 2-3 hours, he did 50 books. And I was like, how? And then I asked him, how are you doing it? And then he said, yeah, actually, you told me how to do it. And he said, you told me, don't give up. Just continue, pray to Krishna, and just go from person to person and be detached and try your best. And every book counts. And I always told him this story. I always tell, I have this from Navina Nirada Prabhu, and here's it probably from somewhere else. It's not from our Vedic Shastras, but it's a very nice example to understand how important it is to, whatever you do, maybe you can take this example of a book distribution, but whatever you do, every action matters. And this example was like a father is with his son on the beach, on the ocean, and all these crabs or sea stars, how you call them, star seeds, Seestern, wie sagt man? Starfish. They are stranded on the beach. I think it was crabs, like lots of crabs, tons of crabs. And the father takes one crab and throws it in the ocean. And then the son says, why are you throwing this crab in the ocean? What's the use? And then he takes another crab, and then he said, it matters for this crab. He takes another one, it matters for this crab. And it matters for this crab. And he told me this example. I told him before, and then he told me, each crab matters, each book matters. So each mantra we chant matters, each pot we clean matters, each mangalati we come, it matters. It's all for our spiritual benefit. And what to speak of book distribution. And then somehow he understood what I told him, but I didn't even realize my own, words. I just preached, but I didn't follow it myself. Of course I did in the beginning, but somehow, even now, I know it, but I don't do it always. But it works. Yeah. That was important, to be detached. And as soon as we are attached to a result, Krishna wants to purify us. He doesn't want us to be on this platform of I and mine, of the false ego. I have to enjoy something, I have to see, control, experience something. And like we spoke before, that Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga is on the same platform, because Sankhya Yoga means detachment from the material world, Bhakti Yoga, attachment to Krishna. And you can't have both. As long as there's a tiny little bit of attachment to this material world, you can't go back to Krishna. It's not possible. You have to come back. You have karma. As long as you have karma, there's no way to come back. There's no way to go back. To come back, of course. And with yoga, all these different kinds of yoga, it's a process. But if you get stuck on one of these processes, like Dhyana Yoga or Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, then we will not reach the ultimate. We will stuck at one point. We will never go to Krishna. So the essence of yoga is only bhakti yoga. The highest yoga is bhakti yoga. But like we practice our sadhana, these other yoga practices is important. Jnana yoga, knowledge is important. Karma yoga, I mean what we practice here is not bhakti yoga. I'm not convinced it's bhakti yoga. Maybe karma mishra bhakti, but I think it's karma yoga. We're offering our results, our fruits to Krishna. Bhakti is it, of course, if you have this attitude of really pleasing the Lord. Like in Adipurusha Prabhu, in Bhakti Shastri, he said, now we studied 1 month Bhagavad Gita, but forget everything I told you, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. He said, doesn't matter, everything I told you now, it doesn't matter, just take one thing with you. Whatever you do, always set the intention. Before you do some service, set the intention, please Krishna, this is for you. And then it's bhakti. Because Krishna doesn't need your worship, he doesn't need your preparations, your water, what you offer him, your tulsi leaves. What he says is he needs your love, your bhakti. That's all Krishna wants. And this is the attitude we need to have. And even if we practice other yogas, I mean, I do also yoga and pranayama, but it's like, I see it like sharpen the sword, or the saw, how you say axe, or sharpen the axe. What is the example actually? So, sharpen the saw. Sharpen the axe, like you go in the forest and you cut the tree, and the axe is stump, and you hit this tree maybe for hours and hours, and the tree will never fall. Maybe it will fall after a few hours or a few days, and you're exhausted. Or you go and you sharpen first the axe, and then you go and you cut this tree very easily. So with our sadhana, with our practice, we sharpen our faith, our conviction, and we attract Krishna with our performance, with our activities, spiritual activities. So when I practice yoga or pranayama, for me it's my sadhana, that my mind is focused and clear, and then I can practice bhakti yoga. And Rupa Goswami, he says we should accept everything favorable and reject everything unfavorable in devotional service. And really simple in the first verse, Vacha Vegam, I didn't recite it so long. Wait. Vacha Vegam, Manasu Kroda Vegam, Shiva Vegan, Udaru Pastu Vegam, Itan Vegan, Viraheta Tira, Savam Apimam, Pritivim Shashishyat, if I'm correct. And it says that a spiritual master, an enlightened being, a saint, what we should be, should always control the urge to speak, the mind's demands, and tolerate anger. Tolerate his anger. What's that? Tolerate. And he should control the tongue, the belly, and the genitals. And then he is ready, eligible to accept disciples all around the world. So this is it's the first verse in the Upadeshamrita, the nectar of instruction. Sounds very basic. This book ends very esoterically, very Radha Krishna, Radha Kund. It's very, very intimate book actually. But it starts with very basics. Prabhupada always gave us the basics. You're not this body, you're spirit soul. And many times you think, why I should listen to it over and over again. But do you really understand you're not this body? Do you really understand you're a spiritual being? If we don't understand this, we can't really practice bhakti, because we can, of course, shadow bhakti. We can try, we can imitate, we can follow, and we get at one stage purified enough to be practicing here bhakti yoga. We pretending to love Krishna, we're learning somehow to be ready in the next life, in the Brahma Lila, to become a Gopa or Gopi, and then ultimate to go back to Krishna, to Goloka Vrindavan. It's the time. But we'll be very far away in the moment. So we have to sharpen our axe. We have to be very careful how we eat, what we speak, what we see, what we hear, what we talk about. Something I heard from Prabhupada. One last thing. Yeah, about this verse that you should control, by practice and by detachment. And then Prabhupada writes in the purport, what this means is to practice Krishna consciousness. And he didn't spoke much about detachment, but he said we should follow the 9 paths of devotional service. Starts with Shravanam. And Shravanam, he said, is the most important. And if we hear about Krishna, Katha, then we get so much purified that all the other processes will follow automatically. And this is the most important because this will cleanse our heart. This will detach us. Yeah, and then he says, then we lose the attachment to the material world. And then we can focus our attachment to Krishna. And you can experience every time when we hear about Krishna, something opens, something changes. There's some nectar is there. And the more we hear consciously, even we can, this is Bhakti Yoga. If we go to the class and we say, Krishna, this is for you, please. I want to have association now with you. And Krishna will take this intention you set. Yeah. And also, when I research now about Prabhupada speaking about Ashtanga Yoga and other yoga practices, he always says, but the highest is Krishna consciousness. And he says, better than all the other yoga processes is Bhakti Yoga. And he also says, that's only for pure devotees. He always mentions it over and over again. You have to be pure devotee, that you have love for Krishna, and so on. And we're not pure devotees. So we should take everything we can to become pure devotees. That should be the highest goal. And by suitable practice, we have here our sadhana, and by detachment, we can become pure devotees. Prabhupada gave us, he's a pure devotee. I'm convinced. I'm convinced in this 1 second we can decide to become pure devotees. But we don't want to become pure devotees. We like our material world. We like the prison. It's nice. It's very enjoyable. Of course, there's some desire to go back, but the longer I'm in Krishna consciousness, the more I realize it's actually nice. Krishna consciousness is nice, life is okay. When I came here, I suffered. I was like frustrated from material world, and I really wanted to go back. When somebody told me, no, you have to take another birth before you go back. You have to go to Boma Lila and become a Gopa. No, I don't want to come back. I want to go immediately to Krishna. But that's even better, because in the Boma Lila on earth, you can play with Krishna as a small boy, Damodar, that you don't have in Goloka Vrindavan. There is only 16 years old. So that's nice. Anyways, there's some thoughts to this verse in purport. Maybe there's some questions, comments, or feedback, reflections. Yuran Prabhu. Yes. I mean, everyone wants to always advise and tell us what, like also I tell so many people now how to do pranayama and this, but I had also 4 different teachers and everyone told me completely different. Like everyone has a different style. And I took now what is most suitable for me, and I can connect with Krishna consciousness. Or before I came here back to Germany, I was also doing all kinds of stuff, like trying out so many yogas and then workout and then running and everything. Like and every time in a practice, it was the best. This you have to do now the whole life. And I told the other, hey, you have to do this, it's so good. It helps your Krishna consciousness, it frees the mind, blah, blah, blah. You know. Anyways, Akila sent me something. He came to my pranayama class, and then he sent me something about related to yoga and Prabhupada, what he says about yoga. In the mid-morning, before cooking, this is from Prabhupada Memories. In the mid-morning, before cooking for him, can't see so properly, I went in the backyard and did some yoga asanas, but I wanted to make sure it was okay. After I had been doing it for 2 or 3 days, I had full intent to ask Prabhupada about it, and that day, sorry, it's a little bit weird written, and that day, but when I brought his lunch plate in, he said, I see you doing yoga exercises in the yard. I said, yes, sir. I was going to ask you about that. The devotees told me that that's not bona fide. It's not our process. Actually, Prabhupada said, these exercises are very good for your health. We don't want anyone to become distracted, so we don't teach it. But for you, it's very good, and I encourage you to do it. A short time later, we were taking a walk in a park in San Diego when someone was doing a headstand off in the distance. Prabhupada looked over and said, oh, this is Shirhasana. That's very good for the health. And then he said something else a little bit longer, and then was also something, they were in a park, and then somebody did a headstand also. Yeah, this was, I think, the follow-up. And then they were laughing about this person. And then Prabhupada was very upset, and then they asked Prabhupada, so what's the use of doing this? And then, sorry, I mixed up something. But there's two similar stories. But in this story I wanted to say, then Prabhupada said, no, you shouldn't do yoga to him. And then the devotee also wrote later that, because this one devotee was laughing about this guy, and so Prabhupada, he didn't, give him any advice to do yoga. Because he said, you do the bhakti yoga, it's fine, you know. And Prabhupada, he didn't came here to teach yoga or sports or gymnastics, because everyone would do it. And there's so many people already teaching all the other stuff. Prabhupada is a pure devotee. He wanted to give us pure Krishna consciousness. So bhakti, I knew a few devotees and they're not swamis, but from my understanding they're very advanced. And they also before did other stuff, but now they only practice Krishna consciousness. They get everything they need from the holy name. And they're healthy, they're shining, and they're really changed, transformed. But also see, on the other hand, we have so many senior devotees who are suffering, are following diets and all kinds of stuff. And they told me, also my Guru Maharaj told me, you will be healthy when you're old. He said he wished he did so much for himself when he was young. So I'm not so healthy now at the moment. I also have some difficulties here and there. But I can see, and if I really want to preach long and practice Krishna consciousness my whole life, with full energy, I want to be 80, 90 and full of energy. Don't want to lie around and can't do anything. So I think you should figure out yourself. You have to see for yourself if it's really helpful. Like 2 years ago, I was in South Africa, and I did every day like Wim Hof breathing, like very intense pranayam, and I was like a junkie, like I need some prana, you know. And I did yoga asanas, and then I did workout and lots of pull-ups, and already got some pain here, but I didn't listen to my body, and I continued, and then I had this tennis arm. And actually doing this practice, I woke up and I chanted a few rounds, but then I practiced all the other stuff, and then late in the evening I did my puja, and then during the day I chanted my rounds, and I did all the other stuff first, and then Krishna came. And then Krishna took me out of this. He gave me this injury, so I only could practice sadhana. I couldn't do any asanas. I was not inspired to do breathing so much. And then I came back to first Krishna. And now I could find the balance. First Krishna and then the other stuff. Or you connect it, or you wake up a little bit earlier, or you plan your day. So that we have to cultivate this understanding. Like Bhaktivedanta Purna Swami said in the lecture recently I listened, he also speaks about Ashtanga Yoga and Pranayam. And it was a very nice series about Nectar of Instruction. It's like, I think, 10 lectures or something, or 12 lectures. And the first 6 lectures were only about the first shloka. And I hear the shloka over and over again. And he really speaks very deeply about it. And then he says, if you practice yoga and pranayama and you go further, then it could happen that you attain mystical powers. And this will distract you from Krishna. And also if you practice all this stuff, because then you think after you can practice Krishna consciousness, there's also material understanding. Because Krishna comes first. Krishna is the goal, not the yoga. The yoga doesn't, and the pranayama doesn't lead you to, it helps you, but to render, to offer flower to Krishna, this is already the highest perfection. And here we can get sidetracked. And this happened to me also. And now I'm very grateful to be here in this association because I could create the balance between both. But yeah, you have to figure out your own way. And nobody can tell you, don't do this, do that. You have to, your guru can tell you, of course, but you have to see what is practical, what helps you. If you kappa type, I need to do exercise. Otherwise, I'm tired. I can't digest my food. I don't feel good. I get sick all the time. If I do exercise, I don't get sick. I was not sick for 3 years, only now because of COVID. But I was not sick for 3 years. I mean, if you, especially if you're a servant of your guru traveling, then I can see this. Most devotees, they don't have much sadhana. They have to be always there for the guru. So this is their sadhana. This is the. There was a question. We have to end. Thank you. I mean, you can see, you can. You can see when we're engaged in festival, for example, or when we have so much service, then there's no time for anything else. No time for Maya, no time for other attachments, only Krishna. Just sleeping, sadhana, and service. And Prabhupada says in this connection, I forgot also in this purport about detachment, that we should get attached to hearing, and it's like a hungry man. When you're hungry, you want to eat. And in the same way, we should be hungry to hear. And then he said, and the proper diet is prasadam, Krishna prasadam. He said, hearing Krishna Katha and eating Krishna prasadam. And then we get attached to Krishna. And dance. Okay. Wir müssen jetzt aufhören, aber eine Frage darfst du noch stellen. Ich zeige schon die ganze Zeit auf.
In Germany.
Germany, yes.
Ich habe nicht die Frage, sondern wir haben schon übergestern und heute
Was ist übergestern?
Englisch gehabt.
Vorgestern. Aha.
Mit Englisch. Können wir morgen bitte mit Deutsch?
Ja, hängt von den Sprecher ab und die hier sind. Aber der Sprecher morgen spricht Deutsch. Normal, vielleicht kann er Deutsch sprechen. Ja. Am Sonntag gibt es wieder Englisch. Tut mir leid. Okay, danke euch. Thank you, everyone. Krantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam, Ki Chai. Shri Prabhupada, Ki Chai. Gauda Bhakta Vrinda, Ki Chai.